Hi everybody, I'm Mike McCrory and this is Would You Make It? So I made an end grain chessboard several months ago, and a viewer from Austria reached out to me and asked me if I could make him the same board, but this time put algebraic notation into the frame. I don't own a CNC router, so I'm going to do it with a handheld router. Imagine that. So let's get started. I've already made the chessboard, so I've printed these letters and numbers on the computer, and I'm going to arrange them around the chessboard. If you want to see how I made this chessboard, I'll put a link in the corner. I'm arranging the notation so that I have letters across the top and the bottom, with the white square in the lower right-hand corner, and then numbers along the side. And then I'm going to use old-fashioned carbon paper to transfer the letters and the numbers to the wood. Sometimes the wood grain will cause the pencil to go a little bit off course, so I'm just cleaning them up after I remove the carbon paper. I'm using a wood carving router bit that has a 15-degree tip on it, and now I'm just waxing the bottom of the router base so that it's going to glide smoothly over the frame as I'm doing the carving, because I really want to minimize the amount of friction that I have to overcome. I'm going to carve the notation in 2 passes, so I'm going to do a first cut, and then I will lower the bit a little bit further and then do another pass. And this shows about how far I'm going to go down for the first pass. Now I'm going to proceed very slowly and move very cautiously as I follow the outlines that I drew. I really only have one chance to do this. Any mistakes can't be hidden. The router bit that I'm using here came in a set of 4, and it was relatively inexpensive. I'll put a link in the description if you're interested in learning more. When I get close to the end of the board, then I'll move the clamps down to the other end and proceed. After doing several letters and numbers, I'm gaining more confidence, and now I'm able to lift the router bit out while it's still spinning and then reposition it to carve the next piece. They're looking pretty good after the first pass, and now I'm going to lower the bit a little bit and get ready for the second pass. This is almost like an ASMR video. And now I'm just using one of my carving gouges to clean out the grooves. I'm going to fill the algebraic notation with epoxy resin. I'm using this epoxy from Total Boat. It's a pump system, so it eliminates the guesswork out of the measurement. Just one pump from each of the containers, one pump of the resin for every pump of the hardener. This is a brand new kit, so I'm going to begin by priming the pumps to remove any air. This is a pretty nice epoxy system, and if you'd like to get some, there's a link in the description that will entitle you to a 20% off discount. And then you just need to mix it together thoroughly, and after you've mixed it, just mix it up some more to make sure that it's really thoroughly mixed, and then it's ready to go. You want to mix the epoxy slowly so that you don't introduce air bubbles into it. The video is running at 2 times speed, so that's why it looks like I'm mixing faster than I should be. And then I'm going to add a few drops of black tint. That will contrast nicely with the walnut frame without standing out too much. After filling each of the engravings, I'm just going to shake it a little bit to release any air bubbles that may be trapped inside. And then I'll tap each one from the top to make sure that the epoxy is fully seated into the engraving. I'll let that dry overnight and then sand it off the next day. And then I'll glue it up, and I'm using some of the off-cut pieces to clamp the corners to make sure that everything is aligned horizontally. Next, I'm going to use this spline jig to cut slots in each of the corners to be able to hold the splines. The spline is just a little bit too tight, so I'm going to run it one last time through the drum sander without making any adjustments. That'll remove just a tiny amount of wood to loosen up the fit. The next day, I'll use the bandsaw to remove the excess part of the spline, and then I can finish it up with a sander. And now at the router table with the fence in place and stop blocks at each end, I'm going to cut finger slots. And now I'll do some final sanding to prepare it for finish. One last step before applying the finish is that I'm going to apply water to the board to raise the grain. I'll let this dry and then I'll sand it one last time, and that makes for a much smoother finish. Now I want to eliminate as much dust as I can, so I'm rubbing the board down with denatured alcohol. For the first coat of finish, I'm using de-waxed shellac, and this helps to seal the grain and penetrate deeply into the wood. I want to end up with a satin finish, but if you spray on multiple layers of satin polyurethane, the silica particles that it contains will make it look cloudy. So I want to put 5 layers of a gloss finish and then end up with a final coat of satin. It's still not warm enough to spray outside, so I'm using this spray shelter so that I can spray indoors without getting the polyurethane all over my equipment. It's not a perfect solution, but it works fairly well. I just got this inline filter, and it's been a game changer for me to eliminate moisture from the finish. And now I'm going to rub down the final finish with some pumice stone mixed with paraffin oil. At the end, I'll just rub it down with some paste wax. So I gotta ask, would you make it?